Good morning, everybody. Big day here coming up on GoJo and Golic. Do we need to upgrade the New York Jets to contender status after Aaron Rodgers very publicly rejects Robert Saleh's love on the sideline? Who's in the best position to bounce back after an 0-2 start as we get to week 3 in the NFL season? And it's LeBron James Day around here at GoJo and Golic. The King going to stop by to talk about being the greatest basketball player of all time. No, I'm not pandering. And give us some of his NFL picks for the upcoming weekend. Let's do a show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. No Jesse Cofield with us today in the DraftKings studio in Boston, getting some well-deserved rest. And that's good, Dad. We can spread out and enjoy the space today. We got a great show for everybody. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network or our YouTube channel. If you're watching on the YouTube channel today, you'll see that I am in a hotel room right now. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, getting ready to be on the call for True TV as UTEP and the Miners come on the road to face Colorado State out here in Fort Collins. So very excited for that one. I know you'll be on the road for Sunday Night Football this week, which Chiefs-Falcons, just a weird looking matchup on paper that didn't really strike me until I saw it on thesheeton.com as we were getting ready for the show today. But yeah, Denton, I guess we shouldn't bury the lead. As I mentioned off the top, LeBron James going to be on the show today, which for you over multiple decades of a broadcast career, certainly, you know, another good one as you and Greeny for years and interviewed some of the biggest names in sports and beyond. But hey, in the young couple of years of our show, big get today, hashtag DK partner. Looking forward to talking to LeBron.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely looking forward to talking to LeBron. He's going to do some picks as well. Obviously, we know he's a monster football fan, whether it's college in Ohio State or the NFL and his hometown Cleveland Browns or the Dallas Cowboys, who he loves as well. So, yeah, get to do some picks, talk to LeBron. I'm glad that your bed is made in your hotel room in this era of Zoom guests and sometimes hosts doing the show from the road, that you have made the bed. And at least your mother would be happy.
I literally just did it so I wouldn't get hassled by you. You were 100% of the reason why I made my bed, so you couldn't sit here and complain about a thing that plenty of people, we talked to JJ Redick about this, LeBron James, future coach with the Los Angeles Lakers, about how when he gets to a hotel room, and I'm the same way, I put the do not disturb on the door out front, and then I become a feral little piggy for the next couple of days in terms of what I do inside this room, and that usually includes the bed. But again, because you decided to gripe every time this comes up, I thought I would save myself the aggravation, even though I've gotten aggravated again now.
You know what I call that? I call that good parenting, because now it looks like you have a nicely made bed behind you and people won't think you're a slob, because I do the same thing. I'll go on the road. I'll be in Atlanta, as you said, for Kansas City, Atlanta. I'll put the do not disturb and I'll just live my life the way I want to before I leave. And then I'll pick everything up off the floor and such. Obviously, I won't make the bed, but I'll pick everything up off the floor and somewhat clean up. But I think that's good parenting. I think I've gotten to you. And if it needs you to be mad at me or aggravated at me, that's okay, because the shot looks good for the show, and that's the most important thing. So I feel I've done my job as a father.
we will talk to LeBron about how this dynamic is going to work for him on a basketball team that's going to try and win some games this upcoming season with the two of them involved in that. But Dad, speaking of winners, let's talk about Thursday Night Football from last night. We've delayed it enough. And I had to text Stugotz during the game last night because I know most Jet fans have been sitting around waiting for the bad thing to happen for a while. And last night, they had to keep on waiting because Aaron Rodgers and this Jets team went out and absolutely ripped on Thursday Night Football. They get the win like we talked about yesterday. The under cashes in this game and the Jets win by that margin. We're 6-point favorites going in. They get a 24-3 win on the back of Aaron Rodgers, Dad, 27-35 for 281 and 2 touchdowns. And as much as anything, Dad, Aaron Rodgers looked the part again. You and I talked about this yesterday. The first couple of weeks, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles injury, moved around like that. It wasn't quite Kirk Cousins because the timelines were different, but it was close. And last night, I think looked as close to the vintage Aaron Rodgers stuff as we have seen in quite some time.
Yeah, forgetting all the stats, of which we know he usually has great stats. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. I just love where he puts the ball. It's not just a completion, but it's how you complete the ball, where you save your receiver from getting smoked by a defender, where you lead him enough so he can run with the ball and get yards after the catch. He's always been great at that. And he's always been great at movement in the pocket and creating, not to run, though he did run a couple of times, 4 first downs. One time got tackled out of bounds, close to out of bounds, and some of the Jets wanted to get mad, and the defender kind of, just kind of hand slapped Aaron. They just kind of like were, hey, all was cool. And Aaron even pulled off one of his players who was going after the defender, like, no, it was cool. It was a fine hit. I was still in bounds. But he ran a couple of times. You're right, exactly what we talked about. And he even said after the game that, it was going to take a little time for him to get his feet back under him and get back to moving because a moving Aaron Rodgers is a dangerous Aaron Rodgers. And they had the running game going as well, 133 yards running. Braylon Allen actually rushed for 1 more yard than Breece Hall. They had just about the same amount of carries. But interestingly enough, the touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson was the first touchdown pass by Aaron Rodgers to a first-round drafted wide receiver in his career. Because remember, we always talked about in Green Bay, they never got a first-round receiver. It was always a second round or later. So he takes him all his career and going to the Jets to finally hook up with a first-round draft pick wide receiver for a touchdown in Garrett Wilson.
And it was a hell of a throw, too. Earlier on that drive, Garrett Wilson had gotten one of those bubbles that got them down near the goal line and looked frustrated because he got tackled short of it. And so Aaron Rodgers threw the RPO to him on that side. And if the ball is anywhere else, Christian Gonzalez takes that thing and might have a chance for some run after. And Aaron puts it, to your point, on an absolute rope to the highest corner where only Garrett can get it. He was awesome in that regard, Dad. The accuracy you mentioned on the move, Aaron Rodgers last night when he was on the run, throwing on the run according to Next Gen Stats, 5 for 5 for 62 yards and a touchdown with a completion percentage over expectation of 32.2%. So in those situations, he was almost a third more accurate than any other quarterback would be expected to be in those spots. He was great outside the pocket, all the areas that I just wasn't sure and was going to have to see as a part of his recovery, what that looked like. But to your point, Dad, I think the biggest vote of confidence for the Jets last night, maybe not the biggest worry going forward, was what happened with the offensive line, because they were great. They were moving New England off the ball. That New England team where Jawan Bentley was out, Jabril Peppers ended up going but got banged up more during that game. They're already down one of their best linemen coming into the season on the defensive side. That group looked flat and timid in a way that was surprising given the first couple of weeks, and the Jets took advantage of that. That O-line rolled them off the ball consistently and created holes for whoever was in the backfield here. The rub going to be now, though, we talked about this, the Patriots on the other side who gave up 7 sacks on their O-line last night because they were injured and starting 2 rookies on that group. That group had been shuffling bodies understandably looked worse. This looked more like the Patriot team we expected to start the season. And we said to the Jets, this team that came in with 3 new starters actually had the benefit of continuity. That goes out the window late, as in the second half. Morgan Moses, who they brought over from the Baltimore Ravens, left with a knee injury. And so Olu Fashanu, their first-round pick out of Penn State, had to come in and actually get his first bit of action. And so that'll be the one to monitor going forward, Dad, especially as you've got some big-time matchups coming up with teams like the Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers that are going to stress test your tackles pretty severely.
Yeah. The rookie gets to jump right into the deep end. That's usually how it works when you're one play away. If you're a backup from being a starter, you jump right in the deep end. But it was a domination, and once the Jets got up 2 scores, and that's important, up 2 scores, as we'll hear in a soundbite in a little bit. New England just doesn't have the firepower to come back. And then they had more injuries, as you mentioned, on the offensive line. First half, Jets had 252 yards, total yards. New England had 40. Of the 26 pass attempts for New England, 18 by Jacoby Brissett and 8 by Drake May, who came in with a little over 4 minutes ago in the game. The quarterback was hit 15 times. 15 times out of the 26, struck back, 7 sacks, but hit 15 times. That is just a bloodletting. You know, we talked about the injured offensive line, and they had more injuries, but that Jet defense is an excellent defense anyway. They just absolutely battered Jacoby Brissett, who was getting up and limping or holding a shoulder or an elbow. He just got absolutely beat up in this one. And they just, as I said, don't have the firepower to score a lot of points. Their defense has to keep them in games. So once it's got to a 2-score game, this thing was literally over.
Yeah, it was. And so I think in that regard, you're right. The Patriots, if they're going to win, have to win with a very specific game script this season. And that wasn't afforded to them. For the Jets defensively, Will McDonald showing up in the picture was a really good sign. Their former first-round pick, who's going to need to step up a lot more with Jermaine Johnson now out with the Achilles injury for the rest of the season. The Patriots tight end room got to be stars of the show last night for Aaron Rodgers, who, again, we talked about going into the game, had through 2 games been somewhat of a check down artist. It had been low and slow like a brisket in New York. And last night, Aaron Rodgers, on plays where he let the ball go after 2.5 seconds, so longer than that quick passing yardage, 13 of 17 for 154 yards and a touchdown. And his yards per attempt jumped from 7 when he was under 2.5 seconds to 12. Oh, excuse me. That's on plays outside of the pocket where he jumped from 12 yards per attempt to from 7 yards per attempt inside the pocket. But either way you get it, Aaron Rodgers was dynamic on the move, better outside of the pocket, and holding onto the ball longer to push the ball deeper downfield. All things we wanted to see from this Jets offense, Dad. So it all felt good last night. There was at one point during this game like an extended Aaron Rodgers chant from the crowd that went on for what felt like 5 minutes of game time. I had never heard anything like that outside of a Taylor Swift concert. So I was pretty amazed. That was when I started texting Stu Gotts. But it was right after we saw that hairy moment on the sideline when the Jets did go up 2 scores against the Patriots between Aaron Rodgers and his head coach, Rob Saleh, where Aaron Rodgers comes over and Rob Saleh goes in for the dap into the hug, and Aaron Rodgers gives him the 2-hand shove. And we can't quite tell exactly what was said there, but the glare on the backside of this was icy from Aaron Rodgers. And so it had a lot of people wondering, oh man, are we going to be dealing with the prickly Aaron Rodgers again? Oh man, is all of the smoke from this summer where Rob Saleh talks about Aaron Rodgers, it's not an excused absence when he goes to Egypt, and everyone wondering if there's bad blood between these two guys boiling to the surface? Aaron Rodgers stepped to the podium after, dressed like Johnny Cash, ready to put this one to bed pretty quickly. Take a listen.
There was that awkward exchange with you and Robert. You appeared to push him away
No, it was not really awkward at all.
You appeared to push him away when he went to hug you. What happened?
I didn't know. He's not a big hugger, usually, so I didn't know he was going for the hug. He likes to do the 2-hand chest push as well. So, but he talks a lot about 2-score leads. So I just kind of gave him a push and said 2-score lead. That's what happened.
So, Dad, are you buying this?
Well, and Saleh said the same thing. Saleh said we had talked about a two-score lead, and he was just reminding me we got a 2-score lead, so let's get the defense, to keep holding up their end of the bargain. So either something else happened, because lip readers out there, you had kind of a view of Aaron Rodgers' lips, and I don't know if it said to score, but you'll have plenty of internet lip readers out there telling us what Aaron Rodgers was saying. So I would say either it's something different or they both got their story straight, right? They both made sure they were going to say the same story going to the media, so they wouldn't have different stories that say, "Hey, Aaron, let's get our story straight before we go up there," or it was exactly what it was.
Honestly, even if it's the former and it's just these guys got on the same page and decided the same lie that they were going to tell us, that to me would be a sign of progress and very encouraging, considering this summer when it came to the Egypt trip, they couldn't just do that very easy thing there to satisfy everybody involved. So that in its own way, even if you give it that negative reading, Dad, would actually look like progress for me for the New York Jets, who now, we talked about earlier, they had started off this season by the time we kicked off in week 1 as the betting favorites to win the AFC East. And while you and I both balked at that, I've been someone that's been buying Bill stock for a while and certainly believes that team coming into this year with, Josh Allen being what he is, even with the turnover at receiver, should have been the favorite in the division and was my pick. This was more of the team that I think people had in mind finally, albeit against a bad, banged up Patriot squad in a short week. So I do feel like we have to account for that somewhat as we go through this, but the marker for success for the Jets was always going to be early in this year. When and how much of Aaron Rodgers are we getting back? And last night was a resounding hell of a lot as the answer for them.
Yeah. We saw the Aaron Rodgers. We saw the Aaron Rodgers of old. So Jet fans will breathe a sigh of relief. He got off the field healthy. He ran a couple of times, no limping, no signs of any kind of Achilles injury. So the Jets get a big dominant win.
They get a big dominant win. Congrats to them, Stugotz. I hope you can enjoy this or breathe a sigh of relief somewhere, a few gummies in this morning. Dad, we've got to pay homage to the other thing that we saw happen last night. I mean,
yes.
We're going to talk about Thursday night football and the NFL the rest of the weekend. Good God almighty, what Shohei Ohtani pulled off last night. Not only kicking through and becoming the first player with 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in a season. Forget the 40-40 club. Forget the 45-45. He went full 50-50 on us last night in what could be one of the greatest singular baseball games ever played, as the Dodgers go out and absolutely get a blast of a win, 20 runs in a rout where Shohei Ohtani goes 6 for 6 at the plate with 3 home runs, 10 RBI, and 2 stolen bases. Dad, for a guy we knew was probably going to break this mark against Miami or against whoever was coming up next, to do it in this fashion is just a testament to how singularly great this player has been and the reason why he's already being talked about as one of the greatest baseball players to ever live.
Oh, I mean, I think he's definitely in that category already. Obviously, you'll want to see time. You do it over a number of years, but he's certainly been doing it at an unbelievable level. Went into the game with 49 stolen bases and 48 home runs. We knew he was going to get to 50-50. Ends up being 51-51. And of his 6 hits, 5 of them were extra base hits. I mean, I get it. The last home run was off of not a pitcher, because they were winning 14-3 or 4 or whatever it was, and it was someone who just lobbed like a batting practice pitch in there for his 3rd home run. But still, he was already at 50 home runs, so it already accomplished the 50-50 club. It's ridiculous. Again, for a guy his size as well. I think that does come into play. He is remember at a Rams game that I called, being on the sideline where he was coming in and just being engulfed by everybody, just kind of standing near him going, wow, dude is way bigger than I thought. But man, he moves on the baselines. And what can you say? I mean, he's a guy that had this performance, first 50-50, and if they make it to the World Series, he may end up pitching.
Dad, according to OptaStats, since RBI became official in 1920, only one Major League Baseball player has ever had, over the course of their entire career, in the same game or not, a game with 10 or more RBI, a game with 6 or more hits, a game with 5 or more extra base hits, a game with 3 or more home runs, and a game with 2 or more stolen bases. That player is Shohei Ohtani, and he did all of those in the same game last night. No one else in history had any of those in a single game in their entire career since 1920, and he did it in one game. Welcome back to GoJo Golic. Again, hour number 2. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here, going to be joined by LeBron James to do some NFL picks with him, since we know that was something that I, by the way, spoke into existence for this show. You guys can all text me the thank you outside of the chat, but when it was announced that LeBron James was a hashtag DK partner, I was the one that tweeted at him and said, hey, read the fine print of your contract. You have to come be the guest picker on our show at some point down the road. And now here we are, as he's about to come be our guest picker on the show. So not to steal too much valor, but please clap. Feel free, Dad, if that's something that moves your heart. But we'll get to his picks later on. We're going to do our picks now for the NFL slate this week. And yeah, no, listen, I'm not going to break my shoulder patting myself on the back, but I'm still going to try.
I would hope not, because of course your tweet had nothing to do with getting him on. It was I reached out.
You don't know that.
That's it.
You have no idea.
Say, hey,
you have no idea what went there.
All right. Okay. Hey, you know what? You believe what you want to believe. If that's going to make you feel good, you do your thing.
LeBron and I will send you a video from the next Taco Tuesday, dispelling the myths and the lies that you're trying to send out here into the universe. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the NFL slate. We'll go a college preview coming up in about 15 minutes too. But we do have an important week coming up, because we know, especially for some of the O2 teams that are walking down a pretty dire path when it comes to their postseason possibilities, there's a lot on the line this weekend. But Dad, let's start off with the surprise team in the NFL so far this season. The New Orleans Saints hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. The Saints 2.5-point favorites at home against the Eagles line that moved pretty considerably before this weekend. On Saturday, the Eagles were a 2.5-point favorite, and after the Saints blowout and the Eagles collapse, that flipped on the other side of this. So, Dad, I know it feels like recency bias because we're dealing with small sample sizes here, but do you think the Saints keep this rolling against that Eagles defense that struggled to stop the run against Atlanta?
I mean, I would say yes. I mean, they're not just passing the ball well and they're running the ball well. Alvin Kamara is having a resurgence on what he's doing. And Clint Kubiak, I mean, they're putting up college numbers. 47 in the first game against the Panthers, 44 against Dallas. See, these are college numbers they're putting up against NFL teams. And I know people joke Carolina, but Carolina's an NFL team. And they got a 40-some burger put on them, as did the Cowboys. So the Eagles coming off that bad loss to Atlanta, giving up the last drive with a minute something to go and score with 30-some seconds to go and lose the game. They certainly have a bad taste in their mouth, but they haven't been playing well. The defensive line only has 1 sack for the Eagles. The offensive line for the Saints has the longest time before pressure on their quarterback. Derek Carr's only been sacked twice. I mean, all things point toward, and it's at New Orleans, all things point toward the Saints continuing to do what they've done. Philly is left scratching their head. They thought they did enough to win this game on going up 6 with over a minute to go, but obviously Atlanta had different ideas there. And the Saints will, if it turns into a passing game, they keep coverage back. They don't blitz a lot. I know when they blitz, they usually get pressure, but they don't blitz a lot. So it means they have at least 7, sometimes 8 in coverage, depending on the rush. So right now they got it rolling on. And right now, a hell of a lot, while the defense has been holding teams down to points as well, Clint Kubiak is right now your assistant of the year. I know we're only two game sample size, but wow. Has he done the job?
A.J. Brown likely still going to be out for Philadelphia, too, which is an issue there. Taysom Hill, Marshawn Lattimore, and Tyrann Mathieu were all limited on Wednesday on the practice report for the Saints. But, Dad, yeah, in lieu of injury, I do think I'm going to have to ride with New Orleans on this one. It's a game at the Dome there at home, and that Eagles defensive front, certainly more talented than the one in the middle, I should say, personnel-wise, with the defensive tackles. With just the Georgia contingency alone, I trust them a little bit more against the run than I do what Dallas has been trotting out. But it still hasn't been great. That Atlanta Falcons team that was an offensive line that's a really good run blocking unit was able to move them a bunch schematically. It's a little bit different. A lot of the Eagles defense and the runs that they've given up have been against lighter personnel, 11 personnel. The Saints use a lot more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends on the field as opposed to 1, and are a little bit thicker and more downhill with their runs. That being said, until Philadelphia shows me that they can stop that, everything else for this Saints team that we talk about, all the points, all the high flying stuff, is set up off the fact that they're just kicking ass up front right now in a way that I don't think Philadelphia is able to stop. Part of that time to throw, Dad, it's a lot easier to pass protect when you're dealing with a bunch of effective runs, play action passes off of that, all the motion and under center stuff that Clint's brought to this offense that you mentioned. I just think it's one of those things early in the season, you're kind of looking for what's real and what's not. This isn't a gimmick with the Saints. They're not winning by accident in these games. No. They're winning because they're rolling folks off the rock, and because on the other side, they're getting after them when they do choose to send pressure on defense. So I'm with you. I like the Saints. I'll give the points on this one at home, and I think they keep this thing rolling, and we have to start to upgrade the software in our head about what we believe them and the rest of the NFC South are capable of there. Let's go Lions at Cardinals, Dad, another surprise team in the NFL. The Lions, a 3-point road favorite against this Cardinals team here, and I think for a lot of people, this is where the rubber's going to meet the road of, okay, this Lions team got embarrassed last week at home. They've still got a team that's defined by their rushing attack. Can Arizona, whose defense, we talked so much about Marvin Harrison Jr. in the offense last week, the defense looked a lot better than most of us had predicted going into the season. Can that group up front hold up against a Lions team that's going to come back and try and get to their rushing identity?
I've been impressed on both sides with the rush for the Cardinals. 4th best in the NFL, giving up just over 76 yards rushing a game, but they're rushing for 177 yards per game. That I didn't see coming. I'm not going to lie. So you add in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray, and I was kind of. The Cardinals were kind of an enigma to me, especially at the first game when Marvin Harrison had, I think, the one catch. You were wondering, was he how much going to be part of the offense? I know it was early on, but boy, he made a splash in week 2. it's still a team that was tough to figure out, especially because of the defense. Offensively, they were led by Trey McBride and the receptions, their tight end. But I even though Jonah Williams is on IR for the Detroit after week one, one thing Detroit had was a strong offensive line, but they've given up 5 sacks in the first 2 games. While, by the way, Aiden Hutchinson has 5 sacks in 2 games. It's been pretty impressive. The redone Detroit secondary, which has given up 225 yards a game, but only 2 touchdowns. So they've kind of been but not broken. But it's a newly minted secondary. Can Kyler Murray have success? He and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride have success. I think overall I like the Lions more in this game as a team, even though they lost last week and they're traveling this week. I do like them in this game.
Yeah, Detroit, the 4th best rushing defense in the NFL, and I think that's quietly been something we haven't talked about enough with the Cardinals is the damage they've done running the ball with James Conner, even going back to last season. And I saw Mina Kimes point this out on NFL Live the other day. The Arizona Cardinals getting big to go small. This is a team that's used 3 tight end sets more than any team in the NFL other than the Pittsburgh Steelers at just under 20% of the time. And both of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s touchdowns have come when they've gotten big bodies on the field to then go small and attack you with a great wide receiver who gets a better matchup on the outside. So I do think this Cardinals team identity-wise is shifting some, but I think they're running up against a team. Hey, the Rams last week, we talked about this, with the Jets not wanting to overreact too much against a Patriots team that was beat up on a short week. That Cardinals team got a MASH unit from the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, every vital part of that team they were bleeding out from. And so I don't want to overreact too much there. I like the Lions in this one, going on the road to get a win by more than the field goal and cover the spread there as they get back to stopping the run on the defensive side of the ball, which they do well. And then offensively, I think reasserting that run game that the Lions or the Rams just were not in a position to challenge the Cardinals with last week. Let's get to the anxiety bowl for this weekend, though. Whew. Ravens at Cowboys. Ravens are a 1-point favorite in this game, as both of these teams are walking down a very dire path. The Cowboys got embarrassed last week by the New Orleans Saints. The Ravens inexplicably stopped running and gave up a lead against the Las Vegas Raiders late last week. So, Dad, who do you trust more heading into a matchup that is for sure going to cause a lot of people to chug some Tums?
I think I trust the rushing attack, if they would use it, of Baltimore against a Dallas team that struggles against the run. I think the Baltimore Ravens can control the ball by running the ball with Lamar and with Derrick Henry against this Dallas defense. That's kind of how I see the game going as far as secondary. Kyle Hamilton for Baltimore, Trayvon Diggs for Dallas have been on the injury list this week. But I in a passing league, I look at the controlling run game of Baltimore to control this game and get off the schneid. I do like Baltimore to get their first win of the season.
I just want to see them stick with it. Like I've heard our buddy Jason Fitz rant about this, and we saw it in the playoffs last year with Todd Monken in this offense, and really saw it against the Raiders last week, where for whatever reason, all you need to do is keep handing the ball off to Derrick Henry in this case now, who wasn't there at the end of last season, and you'll acquire a win. And instead, they choose to go opposite of that. I'm hoping now, after a couple of very high-profile instances of the entire public screaming, run the damn ball at them, as the Baltimore Ravens currently 7th in rushing success rate in the NFL through the first couple weeks of the season, going up against the Dallas team that is second to last in rushing success rate allowed on defense. They're a bad rushing defense. You've got a human battering ram in your backfield and the fastest quarterback in the NFL. Let's not overthink this. The Dallas Cowboys, if you let them get in weird, not long downs and distances, Micah Parsons still lives there against an offensive line where they had to load up and help put extra bodies on the right side to try and offset some of the young players and guys that have moved around in that unit this year. Please don't overcomplicate this, Baltimore. I'm going to rock with you guys on the road. I'm picking the Ravens to win, but this is one of those things where this is kind of the last straw with this team in terms of our conversation and belief about them as contenders. For Dallas on the other side, the problems are a little bit more existential, but Baltimore is one of those teams I expected to be a Final Four caliber team. Dallas's postseason problem showing up in the regular season, it sucks for me as someone that's backed them, but I still think in this particular instance, got to go with the Ravens here. Dad, I want to get your view on Sunday Night Football before we get too far down the road on this segment. Chiefs 3.5-point favorites on the road against the Falcons. I know you can't pick this game because you're calling it for Westwood 1, but as you get ready to call this with Brian Radke, what do you have your eye on?
Well, I mean, I definitely have my eye on who's going to carry the ball for Kansas City. Now it's going to be Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. They're going to get the bulk of the carries. I know they re-signed Kareem Hunt, but I would imagine Carson Steele, undrafted free agent, taking over for Isaiah Pacheco, a 7th rounder, so they know how to grab talent. This is a Kansas City team who the first 2 weeks has won in the last play of the game, right? The toes out of Isaiah Likely out of the back of the end zone where Baltimore was going to go for 2. So maybe they would have won, maybe they would have lost. We don't know. And then Butker gets the field goal as time expires to beat Cincinnati. So they've been hanging on for victories, and Atlanta comes from behind and gets a victory. So, and it's in Atlanta. Atlanta gets that confidence build of coming off the big win over Philadelphia. But I mean, again, we keep saying it's Pat Mahomes, it's the Chiefs, it's the Kansas City defense, but they've had 2 tough games. Now they are against 2 opponents who we think are going to be playoff worthy in Baltimore, even though they don't have a win, and Cincinnati. So I look to see again who's in the backfield and how they split the carries in Kansas City as one of the main things, and then. I don't have much time to get into it. Atlanta going to their first round weapons on offense instead of former 5th and 6th round picks that they've gone to in the first couple of games.
Yeah, I think that's important. Drake London starting to come online the way a lot of people hoped, and that matchup against a Chiefs secondary that so far looks like it is missing L'Jarius Sneed, maybe more than some people like me accounted for. I still like them to win on the road. 3 in the hook is tough, but I think I'd still lay it for them just because, like you said, Baltimore, Cincinnati, those are teams with a little more history with this Chiefs squad than Atlanta, who caught lightning in a bottle at the end of a game and won in a spot where almost no one thought they were going to. So I'll rock with the Chiefs on that. I know you can't pick it. Going to be an exciting nightcap and end of the week. We'll get to even more NFL picks with LeBron James coming up in a bit. But coming up next, let's take it back to college and look at a big-time prove-it slate this weekend in a big-time Big Ten matchup in the Big House. Did I say big enough? Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Just a little while longer, guys, before LeBron James gets here to make his pick. We also have some other big news. We talked about stadium movement news for Philadelphia. I would say a much more important headline for the 76ers fans heading into the 2024-25 season just dropped. We will get to that off the top of the next hour. But, Dad, it's time to go back to college. Last week ended up being a little bit of an underwhelming slate, but thanks to conference realignment, we got some big-time helmet matchups as teams that are new conference mates going into this season. So let's get to our college football weekend preview, brought to you by our friends at Cheez-It. This college football season, we are feeling cheesiest with Cheez-It, a great way to snack your way through the slate. I'm a white cheddar grooves guy till the day that I die, but they all play very well, and they're all going to make you very happy as you watch a slate, Dad. So we mentioned the conference realignment faction of things. The biggest game of the weekend, I think, for most people, especially ranking-wise, number 6 Tennessee on the road against number 15 Oklahoma. For Tennessee, a team that has not largely been tested throughout the early portion of the season, had a nice win against NC State that was a little closer in the first half than I think people expected with that high-flying offense, before a turnover then sends the floodgates off and begins the onslaught of points that have become usual for this team. They averaged just under 64 points a game so far through this season. So, Dad, going on the road to Norman, Oklahoma, which is a place that's always been difficult to play, difficult to win. We know it's Brent Venables now, not Bob Stoops. Tennessee 6.5-point road favorites right now. Are you buying Tennessee and the points?
Going to be warm there, too. Going to be 94 degrees, so it's going to be hot. Listen, they beat Chattanooga, North Carolina State, and Kent State. You mentioned the numbers. Nico Iamaleava has completed, 71% of his passes, over 10 yards per pass, 6 touchdowns, a couple of interceptions. Thank you on the pronunciation. But, so we talk about this Josh Heupel offense, but their defense, going back to the bowl game against Iowa on January 1st, of which they beat Iowa 35-0, they have gone 4 straight games of not giving up a tutty. The only touchdown that they gave up was a pick 6 against North Carolina State. Their defense has not given up a touchdown in 4 games. Oklahoma is dealing they had basically a new offensive line coming into this year, and they've had injuries on the O-line. They've given up 9 sacks. So, I mean, it's all pointing toward Tennessee, not just offensively, but defensively, the way Tennessee is playing. They are the real deal. I am absolutely taking Tennessee on the road, and I'm giving the points.
I think I'm leaning that way, too, and a lot of it really does come down to, Jackson Arnold is, I think, a quality quarterback. Tennessee secondary have some opportunities for you to create some big plays if they're not careful. But that defensive front led by James Pierce going up against that rebuilt offensive line, which is always going to be a question mark. And Bill Bedenbaugh, their offensive line coach at Oklahoma, one of the best in college football. He's one of the holdovers from that last regime that stuck around here as Brent Venables came back. Dad, this is a big one, personally for Josh Heupel coming back, his first time coaching against the program where he won a national title, where Brent Venables was actually the co-defensive coordinator on that team too. So plenty of connective tissue for those two teams. But I'm with you. I think this is where we finally get to stamp Tennessee and start to see, because I think they win by more than the spread in this game. I also don't think it's going to be a massive blowout against this Oklahoma defense that can do some of the things traditionally to stop these teams that do these high-powered spread no huddle offenses the way that Tennessee does, pure get up and go, use pace as a weapon. Is you've got to be able to present them different looks to muddy the water for the quarterback who's really just solving a math problem in the box. Are there too many guys here and not enough guys to cover outside? If so, then I throw. And if you can present him enough different looks, and if you've got the bodies to hold up against the run inside there without having to overcommit, then you've got a chance. It's why Bama, Georgia, a lot of these teams, when they face Tennessees and Ole Misses of the world, tend to be more successful than others. I just don't know if on the other side they can hold up against the Tennessee defense that, you're right, does not get enough of the billing.
couple of players to watch for Oklahoma. True freshman running back Taylor Tatum's only had 15 carries this year. I would expect his workload is going to pick up. And Deion Burks, their wide receiver, has 22 receptions. That's second in the SEC, so he's going to have to be a big part of the offense. And defensively, our Mason Thomas had 3 sacks against Tulane in the fourth quarter. So just a few of the players that are going to have to step up for Oklahoma in this home game for them.
Yeah, gonna be a big time matchup, no doubt in that one. So looking forward to it. Again, seeing this as an SEC matchup, I had to check myself as I was listening to my buddy Gabe Eichert on his podcast breaking down this game. That this is now a conference matchup, as is Dad. Number 11 USC on the road as 5-point favorites in the Big House against Michigan. I saw a video of plane footage of USC heading to Big Ten country, which, as Andy Staples rightly pointed out, they're coming from Big Ten country now. I live in Big Ten country in Southern California, but Michigan, Dad, also, it appears, Sharon Moore gave up the goods at the press conference and said Alex Orji will take the first snap of the game. So it appears they're getting ready to make a quarterback switch after Davis Warren threw 3 times as many picks with 6 as touchdowns through the first couple of games of the season. I don't know what the mix is going to look like still. It doesn't sound like maybe there's wholesale change for either of these guys with very different skill sets, but that's a scary prospect going into a game where on the other side, this USC offense has certainly still been one capable of putting up big points under Lincoln Riley.
Well, I mean, you're going to see Michigan and Orji try and control the ball. Orji's more of an option quarterback. He's thrown 7 passes in 12 games over 3 years for Michigan. He's 6'3", 235. He's a big kid. He's a big runner. And with Warren, they're not good enough. And again, you're living off the national championship, so you get some leeway with all the players that you lost. But they're just not good enough to have a quarterback throw 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Can't turn the ball over that much. You just can't. You can't give the other team the possessions. Miller Moss can take care of the ball, the quarterback for USC. They have Zachariah Branch, a very, very fast receiver who can stretch the defense, Michigan's defense. And for Michigan, Colston Loveland, I mean, their tight end, their All-American tight end, is undisclosed injury. Not sure if he's going to play. Had 8 receptions in the first game, 8 in the second, 3rd in the third game, and then he got hurt against Arkansas State. He has, 187 of Michigan's 459 receiving yards. He is a big part of that ball control offense, running and throwing to the tight end. So if he's out, that is definitely, absolutely going to hurt this Michigan offense.
Yeah, I had to go back and check last night because we really don't know with that what's going to happen. You mentioned 187 of their 459 receiving yards. Dad, no other pass catcher from Michigan so far this season has more than 56. It's been a one-man band there. Now, you could try and galaxy brain this and go Ewing theory, where, all right, if you're an opposing defense and now you don't know exactly where the ball's going to go, and you've got a new quarterback pass catcher relationship to worry about, maybe that could afford Michigan some opportunity. But the run game as the whole new, you talk about whole new offensive line, Michigan replacing some incredible guys from a group that was Joe Moore Award perennial, both winners and finalists for the last few seasons. Now, not as dominant on the ground as they have once been. And defensively, it's just creating an imbalance. Like we've talked about, the great players still on that side of the ball. But when you're going up against an offense like USC's that with Miller Moss, they've been able to put up points, albeit we've seen them, especially the best competition, an LSU defense we don't necessarily trust. I do think for USC, the other key is Michigan is going to try and absolutely take the air out of the football in this game. I think USC's defensive changes and what we've seen with Dan Lynn since he's come over have been seen most notably up front. Personnel, them doing a better job setting the edge, bigger bodies in the front 7. I still maybe have some concerns downfield that we saw pop up early in the season, albeit against a better passing offense. But I think that group is capable of doing enough against the run versus Michigan in this first look to give their offense the kind of reps that they need to pull away from this one. So I like Michigan. I'll give the points in this game. Been heavy on the favorites all day today, but especially if that Loveland news, even if he's not out of the game and he comes in limping into this game, anything less than his usual self, that's a tall task against USC, who has a real chance.
Wait, did you say you like
statement? I like USC.
Did you say you like Michigan? You said you like Michigan. You like SC.
Oh, well, I misspoke on that. I like USC. I'll give the points in this game. Okay. I'm not picking Michigan.
Me too.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dad, let's finish off this one. Utah at Oklahoma State, another ranked matchup, 12 versus 14. Oklahoma State a 2-point favorite in this game, and the big story surrounding Utah's quarterback Cam Rising, who missed last week with an injury to his throwing hand. It sounds like, according to ESPN's Pete Thamel, that he was not cleared to play in Saturday's game, did not practice last week, but has been cleared this week, did see him in practice, and is expected to play. And so while he's still dealing with an injury to his throwing hand that has to be accounted for, I think there's some stitches in there as well. Dad, he's the engine that makes this whole offense go. We've seen the on-off splits with him. They're nightmarish in favor of him being on. And so going into Oklahoma State, as they get ready for a tough back-to-back, this game and then Kansas State as the contenders of the Big 12 are all piled up at once. Who do you like?
Well, I with Cam Rising back, that makes me lean Utah. I'm wondering, where's Oklahoma State's running game? Where's Ollie Gordon? Ollie Gordon's averaging, 3.5 yards per carry, down from over 6 yards a carry in 23 against Tulsa. He carried 17 times for only 41 yards. They've been passing the ball. Alex Bowman been passing the ball, but Utah, which always has a stout defense, normally against the run, is 26th in the nation against the pass. So that's going to make airing the ball out, if Oklahoma State doesn't get the run game going, difficult on this Utah defense. I don't know where the running game has gone. We were talking about Ollie Gordon as a Heisman candidate and running wild with the ball this year, and that it's been anything but. So I think I'm leaning toward 3 road teams, right? Tennessee at Oklahoma, USC at Michigan, and Utah at Oklahoma State. I think I'm going to lean on 3 road teams.
This is the one I feel worst about. I would take Utah and the points in this game if Cam is healthy, but that's a big if. We saw them certainly sputter against Utah State last week. So there's a lot of things to worry about there. But Dad, with Oklahoma State, I do think part of that answer to the question is just how that offense operates. Ollie Gordon, we saw this in stretches last year where defenses are going to decide, hey, we don't want that guy to be the one to beat us in this game. And so this offense, passing attack-wise, is a really heavy RPO offense. So the minute the defense decides to load up and stop the run, Alan Bowman is just going to air that thing out outside. They've got capable enough receivers to get it done to the tune of 334 passing yards per game, which is 8th best in college football. So this is the one I feel worst about because Cam Rising already feels like he's held together by duct tape and paper clips at this point in his career. And so it doesn't feel like it could take much for this thing to go sideways, but they were my pick to make the playoff out of the Big 12 before the season. If Cam Rising's healthy on the field, I still think that's possible for them right now against this Oklahoma State team that, listen, if you do fall asleep at the wheel and start to focus too much on that, I promise Ollie Gordon capable of going out here and getting it done. So yeah, dangerous road for us to go down here, picking all 3 road teams here. Only one of them a road dog, by the way. So it's not like Vegas disagrees with us all that much. But Dad, the other interesting headline this weekend is we've only got a couple minutes left. Arch Manning going to be the starter this weekend for Texas. They take on Louisiana Monroe. He gets the start as they're going to rest Quinn Ewers before they get into the SEC slate. And how about ULMD coordinator Ernest Hill, who said, we have some kids on our team who played against Arch in New Orleans, a couple guys that done beat him already, so they don't hold too much fear against him. They're not going to hold fear against him coming open here. Dad, Danny Davis on Twitter went and actually investigated this. Arch Manning lost to 5 Louisiana high school teams, 1 Florida team over 4 years at Isidore Newman. Of the Louisiana and Florida products listed on ULM's roster, none of their listed high schools were ones who actually beat Arch in high school. So it appears the lie detector test so far has determined that was a lie.
You're trying to sell the kids on the, that again said that to the media, but that's really talking to the kids of, hey, some of you have had success beating, and then everybody beating Arch, and then they're all looking around in the room saying, wait, did you play in a team that beat him? No, we didn't. Listen, they were going to smoke Louisiana Monroe anyway. Doesn't matter what quarterback. Arch is going to throw for 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. They have without question, the best quarterback room in the land, and Quinn Ewers will be the starter once he's healthy again.
He absolutely will be. Steve Sarkisian said as much in the press conference, said all of our goals as a team, as a national championship caliber program, and Quinn's as a Heisman contender and a potential top overall draft pick are all still on the table for him. And for Arch, an interesting challenge, like we mentioned. It's one thing to get thrown in the fire. It's another thing to be the guy that has to go out and now prepare as the starter for the first time in his career. Coming up next, we'll give you one more interesting college team to take a look at this weekend and get to the big news out of Philadelphia next on GoJo and Golic. All right, welcome back to Cash It or Trash It, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about all DraftKings and what it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, we've talked a lot about the college football slate for this weekend. Let's talk about Miami at USF. The Miami Hurricanes, 17-point favorites on the road against a dominant rushing team in South Florida, averaging 269 yards per game. I think the Hurricanes up to the task. I think they get a big win, and I think they keep the season rolling along. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Hour number 2 here with Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. LeBron James, 4-time NBA champion, 4-time NBA MVP, all-around goated basketball player. Going to join us in a couple of minutes here, Dad, and we'll talk about plenty with him, including his NFL picks for the weekend, his Olympic experience, the upcoming season. And speaking of his Olympic experience, good news for one of his USA basketball teammates, and I say that tongue fully in cheek, knowing what a weird road this was for Joel Embiid on that front, who got a big-time payday and an extension from the Philadelphia 76ers, according to Shams, as now there is no longer a battle with Woj for these kind of headlines. He signs a 3-year, $193 million max extension to stay with the 76ers. Dad, who had already signed Tyrese Maxey to a $204 million deal this summer, Paul George to a $212 million deal this summer. So safe to say the chips are in the middle of the table for Philadelphia heading into this year.
Absolutely ridiculous. Just ridiculous what they make in a smaller roster than obviously the NFL. So the money is just absolutely absurd. This extension equals out to $64 million a year, which is absolutely amazing. Again, we're getting closer and closer, and it'll happen probably 2030 or later, where we'll have a player making $81, $82 million a year, $1 million per game. That's going to happen. That's how successful monetarily the NBA has been.
Yeah, no, they've been printing money left and right. There's no doubt about it. So as the 76ers get set to, potentially break ground in a new building here, like we talked about yesterday, and roll into the season with Joel Embiid, who, we talked about it, Paul George and what he represents, to trying to give another option to an offense that's had to rely on Embiid, who has been off injured over the years in critical moments down the stretch of the season. This only ramps up the intensity on that. But one of the reasons the NBA has been so valuable is because of our next guest. Cool moment for us as we got a chance to catch up yesterday with everything NBA star LeBron James. Let's check that out. All right, exciting day for us here at GoJo and Golic. Get to welcome in, I think, our most illustrious guest yet. I think we can make that pretty official at this point. 4-time NBA champion, Finals MVP, and as of this summer, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, LeBron James, kind enough to give us some time today. LeBron, good morning. How you doing?
Oh, man, good morning to you guys. Appreciate it for having me on the show.
No, we're excited to have you here. We got a lot we obviously want to talk with you about, both on the basketball front, on the football front as well here. But, I think we got to start with most recently this summer. You were fresh off the event of the summer, being over in Paris for the Olympic Games. You and the Avengers, as they were dubbed, on the men's team that took home gold, had an incredible run. How unique was this? How did this compare to some of the other Olympic teams that you'd been fortunate to be a part of?
Man, it was super unique in the sense of, my last Olympic Games was in 2012 in London. So, it had been 12 years since I actually graced the floor, for the Olympic team. And to be able to do that, alongside Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, my teammate Anthony Davis, and the rest of the crew, to play alongside, Steve Kerr, who I've had a lot of battles with over the years. Then get to reunite with my former, coaches in Eric Spoelstra and Tyronn Lue. It was an unbelievable summer, and we dubbed ourselves the Avengers, and we had to make it happen. But we was able to bring home gold and represent USA with the utmost red, white, and blue respect.
As Mike mentioned, it's your third gold, but your first, and through your career, to get voted captain is always a cool thing. But you got to carry the flag. You were the flag bearer. Talk about that. That had, I'm an Olympic freak. So just seeing that in the Olympics was really, really cool.
When my name was talked about before it, became a reality, it was, I didn't know how to feel about it. I had seen so many different, flag bearers and so many great athletes, carry our flag, represent our country. And then, we come into a team meeting and Steph, he did the video for me and then, said it in front of the team that I had become elected, alongside the great Coco Gauff. Just a moment just kind of hit me. And, it's something that was super surreal, to be, on the front of that boat, in Paris with all our, Olympians, and holding that flag was just like, such a sense of pride, to be able to understand what it means for our country, and I know, right now and, for quite a while, our country has been, divided, and trying to decipher love and hate and whatever the case may be. But I felt like at that very moment, no matter what you stood on, no matter, where you were from, everybody had one common goal, and that was the red, white, and blue, and representing our country and our unbelievable athletes, at the, Paris Games. And that was an unbelievable moment for myself and for my family and my friends and everybody.
It was an incredible moment, no doubt, something that really captivated at the start of the games there. You mentioned Steph Curry did the video for you on that too, though. He's a guy you had plenty of battles with, but also have such a close bond with. What was it like watching him go through his first Olympic Games and the trajectory that he was on, starting off a little bit slower before being one of the main reasons you guys took home gold?
Yeah, you know what? We I talked to him, a lot about that, and, him being in his first Olympic Games. He had played in the World Championships before, but, being part of the Olympic Games for the first time, he was new to it. But, you could see every single day, every single moment was, it was right there. I was like, just, it's on its way. I knew the onslaught was going to happen. I knew the barrage and the avalanche was going to come down at some point. And we saw that in the semifinals versus Serbia. And then we saw it, obviously, in the finals versus the host team in France. And, Steph did what Steph did, or what he does, hitting those big time shots, and putting everybody to sleep. So, the opponents to sleep. So it was an unbelievable moment. I was happy to be alongside of him.
So you had great moments, obviously, on the basketball court, but there were a lot of other events going on. What other events did you most enjoy taking in?
I believe, it's always fascinating to see track and field and also gymnastics, obviously, seeing Simone Biles continue to dominate her sport, at the level that she's at. And it was unbelievable, having a Black girl daughter in my household who loves gymnastics, loves volleyball and things of that nature. To have an example like Simone is unbelievable. And then just, seeing track and field. I love seeing those runners, they run extremely fast. If it's one for endurance, if it's like the 400 or whatever the case may be, if it's the 4x1 relay, and that's for all countries. I just love, seeing, track and field and seeing the great athletes that we have all over the world. But, it's pretty cool.
I feel like we got a lot of great videos about Anthony Edwards and his Olympic experience here. As one of the vets on the team, what was it like with him on the squad as the young guy that seems to be really up next as one of the guys that could be a face of this league?
No, I thought that was the best team. That was the best thing about our team. We had the vets. We had myself and Steph and KD and AD, Drew Holiday. And then you had the younger guys. You had the, Tyrese, Halliburton, and, the Anthony Edwards, the Devin Bookers, and just to see the excitement that Ant-Man played with, showed off the floor. He wanted to compete against everybody. You probably saw him wanting to compete versus Team USA ping pong team. He said he could beat people in swimming. He wanted to compete versus everybody. And just to see that electric and that energy, from a young guy, and for us as the older guys, remembering at one point having all that energy, was definitely, it was a blessing for sure to be around and the rest of those young guys.
He is a quote machine. There is no doubt about it. So listen, going into, a couple of decades worth of basketball, going into a new year, I'd say a little bit has changed. Your old podcast partner is your coach and your son is on the team. So just how different is this season to going into this season compared to the other, umpteen years?
No, it's definitely different in the sense of, just mentioning, with Bronny being a part of the team now. I'm looking at you two guys right now. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world to be able to work with your kid, so, this week we got back into the gym, and it was really the first time that me and Bronny, was basically on the floor as professionals, training, going against each other, preparing, for the season. And I had a couple moments where I kind of I lost focus, and I'm not used to losing focus when I'm out on the floor, but I was a couple of times I was just looking to the side and just watching him prepare and watching him go after it. And it was just, it's going to be an unbelievable year for myself, and I hope for him as well.
I feel like I wouldn't be doing my journalistic duty if I didn't ask, what did he call you when he got out in the court? We saw the soundbite the other day on whether or not he was going to call you dad. How did he address you when you guys finally got out there?
You know what? He has not said anything yet. You know, he has not given me a name yet on the practice court. And I've actually had my ears so open waiting for that moment. And I know it's going to come at one point. And I don't know if I'm going to be surprised by it or in awe of whatever he calls me. So, you know, I'll make sure that you guys get the intel. Just because I'm on you guys' show today, you know, I'm going to give you guys the first crack at it of what he said first when it comes out.
Perfect. Breaking news then we'll get straight from the source of LeBron James that we're looking forward to there. But that's a cool moment. I saw, Steve Sarkisian got a chance to watch his son play for Texas this last weekend and said, he's like, I took the headset off and I was just dad for a few plays and getting to watch that. And I'm curious for you, Dad mentioned you're 2 decades into one of the greatest careers basketball's ever seen. You've got all the championship accolades and everything else. Has this changed your mindset at all going to this season, changed your approach at all going into this season with how different that particular part is?
I think with that particular part, it's going to give me a sense of enjoying the moment a little bit more. When you're so engulfed and you're in training mode and you're in determined mode and you're so engulfed on the preparation and the process, sometimes you can lose tracks of some of the, things that happen throughout the course of the season where you should celebrate it or you should be, appreciate it a little bit more. So I think, with Bronny being here now, I think I can have a moment or two where I can just kind of just sit back and be, appreciative of just the moment itself, because, it doesn't last forever. Like you guys mentioned, I am 2 decades plus into this, into this career. There's no way in hell I'll do another 2 decades plus. So I got to appreciate some of it. And, to be alongside Bronny would definitely help that.
So I got to ask, I only played a paltry 9 years in the NFL compared to your couple of decades. So when my kids were coming up and playing football, especially in high school, I taped their games and then the next day we watched film. I had them in a room watching film. So now you were still playing when Bronny and Bryce were in high school, but do you break down tape with them and do your kids hate that as much as my kids hated when I broke down football with them?
Well, if I to mention, like you just said, if I had a game the same day that they had a game, I definitely had it on recorded. If I didn't, and if I was on the road, I was always watching the games. And as soon as I saw them, I would definitely mention 4, 5, 6 plays that I saw that they could have been better at, that they're probably telling me that they were good at, and I'm wrong, vice versa. We go back and forth. So, I totally get it. Oh, and to go back on what you just said, Senior, 9 years in the NFL, that is 15 plus years in the NBA, especially at your position. So that is not a mere 9 years. That physical, pounding that you guys got to take in that league. So, 9 years is quite of a career.
No, I appreciate that.
No, there's no doubt about it. And I have a feeling now, Bronny being on the same team with you, will have the same realization I did when I got to ESPN and started working with Dad, that Dad knows a thing or two. I should probably listen to some of what's come up. I'd have to imagine he's starting to make that transition now. If there was ever that back and forth before where, hey, getting to see it up close and personal, I know for me was so eye-opening, and just seeing all the day-to-day things that you might miss not being in the same building, where now you guys have that relationship at coworkers that's so different than even father and son the way you've had it for so long.
No, and I hope so, and my job is to show by example, show by my leadership. Give him the blueprint that I've been able to accomplish or gather over the last, like you said, 2+ decades, and just filter it to him where he can use it and use it to his ability, to use it to his knowledge, and but the most important thing, just the presence. Being present in your kids' lives is very important, and it's that is the blueprint. So for me, having him on a day-to-day basis around me at the workplace. Lead by example, also by communication, things of that nature, I think is going to only just, fast track him to the greater good.
No doubt about it. We're all looking forward to watching that again. Such a unique thing that we get in the world of sports coming up with you guys this season for the Lakers. As I said, you, JJ Redick, Bronny, and this 2024-25 season going to be one to remember, no doubt about it. But you talked about Dad's time in the NFL. We know you were a hell of a football player yourself back in the day and have loved watching it. So coming up next, we'll be back with LeBron James a little bit more here on GoJo and Golic. GoJo and Golic, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here alongside the King, LeBron James, kind enough to give us a bunch of his time this morning. We talked a bunch of hoops before, but we know LeBron James was a prolific high school football player back in his days as a kid from Northeast Ohio, and still a huge fan of the game now, whether it's Ohio State on Saturdays or the NFL on Sundays as well. And you guys have seen him in the ads with Kevin Hart. They have been hilarious, and we know LeBron James got plenty of opinions when it comes to the NFL slate. So you want to pick some games with us, LeBron? We're going to go through the Sunday slate with you. That work?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's start it off here. The 1 o'clock window on Sunday, Eagles at Saints. LeBron, who you got in this one?
That is, Eagles had a tough loss versus the Falcons in their last game. Came down to the wire. They let one slip away from them. But the Saints have been one of the most surprising teams so far. That offense right now is very prolific. I do see the Eagles making being a little bit better, but I'm going to go with the Saints, man. I think they keep that offense rolling. I'm going to take the Saints in that game at home.
Yeah, they are hot right now. There's no doubt about it. All right, how about the Chargers at the Steelers, where Justin Fields going to get his third start of the year?
Yeah, you know what? Big Justin Fields fan, and obviously the Ohio State Buckeyes. And you can never ever count out a Mike Tomlin team. And as well as Coach Harbaugh got those guys playing right now, I cannot not take the Steelers at home.
Awesome. All right, Pittsburgh, the standard is the standard, as we well know, and LeBron, we're going along with that one there. Let's go the next one, Broncos on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team in the NFC South that's off to a hot start this season.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be my second, choice as far as, most surprising team so far. Obviously, Tampa lost that playoff game, in Detroit last year, but they was able to get their get back last week in Detroit. So I see them coming back home and continuing to going 3-0 versus the 0-2 Broncos. Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, has looked good, made some unforced turnovers late in games, but he's going to be a really good player. But I have Baker Mayfield and one of my favorite players, Mike Evans, coming out 3-0 after that game.
Yeah, Mike Evans, absolute stud in his career. All right, let's go to the Giants, who are certainly struggling at this point, at the Cleveland Browns.
Well, we already know who I'm going to pick here for sure. I'm definitely going with my Cleveland Browns, man. The Giants definitely struggling. Their offense is struggling right now, trying to find their niche of what they want to become, how they want to play. Do they want to be a pass first team, run first team, play action team, whatever the case may be? But you can't be anything when you're going against Myles Garrett. I am picking my Cleveland Browns at home to go 2-1.
Yeah, I'm blaming you in the basketball world for influencing Myles Garrett to be doing crossover dribbles in front of centers on the offensive line, terrifying guys that used to be in my spot out there. Completely unfair. I'm with you with that guy's skill set and what a physical. You've had a chance to work out with him before, right?
Oh, my goodness. Absolute beast, man. And, that's like my little brother, man. And we always, anytime we get an opportunity to work out together, we try to push each other to limits that we even didn't think we can get to. So to see him dominating what he does every Sunday, or if it's a Monday night game or a Thursday night game, the guy is absolutely a freak of nature, and much respect to him.
Yeah, I wouldn't own a shirt if I were him. I would never wear a shirt in my life, ever.
No, there's no doubt about that. Let's go to another former great Buckeye quarterback, C.J. Stroud, and the Texans on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Who do you like here?
Oh, man, this is looking like maybe the game of the day, especially for the 1:00 games. You got the 2-0 Texans versus the surprising 2-0 Vikings, a huge win versus the Niners. That was a huge win. I know Sam Darnold felt very good about that win. Very concerned with Justin Jefferson right now. Will he play? Will he not play? That's going to be huge for that offense if he's not available. So, I'm going to go with the Texans. I think C.J. Stroud and that offense, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, those guys are killing it. So, I'm gonna go with the Texans to be able to come out on top of that game in Minnesota.
Yeah, they got a lot of offensive weapons and two great bookend defensive ends as well, and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson.
They do.
Let's go to Packers at Titans. Malik Willis probably going to get the start again. I don't think Jordan Love's going to be back against the Titans.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that report that Jordan Love could possibly be back, but I don't think they want to rush it. So, Malik Willis would definitely get his second straight start in that game on the road versus Tennessee. The Packers are a very good team, and it doesn't matter, who's in the lineup. I think they're well coached. I think their defenses, they fly around, from their front line to their linebackers to their corners and safeties. I think it'll be a low scoring game, but I got the Packers winning that game. Over Tennessee. I know Tennessee is trying to get off the snide. I love Calvin Ridley. Unbelievable catch last week, versus Sauce Gardner. Couldn't believe he made that catch. But I do got the Packers coming out in that game.
All right, let's finish off the 1:00 window. The Bears and number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams going on the road against the Indianapolis Colts, and Anthony Richardson now trying to make that jump in his second year as a starter. Who do you got?
Yeah, we got the Bears at 1-1 versus the 0-2 Colts. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think the Colts get their first win at home. The Bears offensive line kind of scares me a little bit versus that front four of Indianapolis, but I think Anthony Richardson shows up. I think he plays extremely well. I think, they'll do a great job at home. They'll feed off that crowd. And but it's all about protection, for Caleb Williams. If he doesn't get no protection, he's not able to find his first read, or even get to a second read. So, but I got the Colts winning that game and getting their first win of the season at home.
All right, that's the 1:00 slate. Let's go to the 4:00 slate, and we have Panthers at Raiders. Panthers making news by A, not being too good again this year, but B, benching Bryce Young and going to the backup, the aging and aged Andy Dalton.
Yeah, like you just said, the Panthers are definitely off to a not so good start once again, and I don't want to say giving up on their young prospect already, but they know through 2 weeks they have kind of, so I think everything is just kind of in disarray right now, and with the Carolina Panthers, and I just don't see them going on the road to the place that never sleeps in Las Vegas and beating the Raiders. I just don't see that happening. I got the Raiders coming out on that game and going 2-1.
So you had some kind words for Bryce Young on Twitter the other day. Certainly know all about the pressure that comes with being the number 1 overall pick in any league. So I'm sure he appreciated that. The tough time for him. Let's go on. Next one here. Dolphins at Seahawks. A couple interesting teams here. We know Tua, unfortunately, on IR right now after that scary head injury.
Yeah, absolutely. My well wishes and to Tua and his family, also to the Dolphins organization. I got some great friends there as well. I think that's a tough game going from, coast to coast. You traveling from Miami all the way to, to Seattle. And we know what the 12th man can bring to that Seattle Seahawks franchise, and those players every single Sunday or whenever, if it's Monday or Thursday, that 12th man is always ready for a game. And I see Geno Smith, and DK Metcalf, those guys, Tyler Lockett, and the rest of those guys continue on the the winning that they've been doing lately. So I see them going 3-0 and knocking Miami down to 1-2.
All right, let's go to the Lions, who, as you just mentioned earlier, lost at home to Tampa Bay, going to the all of a sudden high-scoring Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, like you just said, all of a sudden the high-scoring Arizona Cardinals, who had a big win, obviously, last week at home versus the LA Rams. My guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., showed why he's going to be one of the great receivers in this league. Kyler Murray was unbelievable last week. Had a, perfect passer rating there, which was, it's unbelievable if you could do that for sure. But, this week I see the Lions, coming in after that, that loss that they had last week, versus Tampa Bay. I see that coaching staff, that head coach, we know how fiery he can get. He's not going to let those guys, go down, 2 games in a row. I see them bouncing back versus Arizona this Sunday.
Yeah, Dan Campbell going to have the boys lathered up for this one, no doubt about it. Sure. Last couple of here, 49ers on the road at Rams in a big division matchup for these teams.
Yeah, that's going to be a big it's a big game. And it doesn't matter, you guys know better than I do, but I've been watching the NFL for a long time. Doesn't matter the record when it's a division game, and division games always mean a little bit more. You want to try to solidify yourself in the division, and obviously the Rams is a little injury hit right now. Puka went out in week 1 in the second quarter. We saw Cooper Kupp go out last week, and those are 2 of the biggest targets that, Matt looks at every single play, so, I think it's going to be very challenging and very difficult, versus that Niners defense, who are a little banged up too, but on the offensive end. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey being out once again. Deebo Samuel, I heard, is going to be out. But I do see the Niners coming back and redeeming themselves after last week's, loss in Minnesota. So I got the Niners winning that game.
All right, the last game in the 4:00 slot is the surprising 0-2 Ravens at the Cowboys. Cowboys have been struggling against the run, and the Ravens have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Not a great recipe.
No, it's not a great recipe. If you're struggling versus the run, the last 2 people you want to see is Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And obviously we saw last week, what Alvin Kamara, did to the Cowboys defense. And I obviously, anytime someone has that many yards versus you, that whole week of preparation is going to be about how we stop the run. So they will be a lot better. But how much better? Anytime you have that RPO action with Lamar and Derrick Henry, where he's able to, give it to Derrick going up, up the middle, or he's able to fan out and run around the edges. It's going to keep DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons honest. So this is a tough one. I know that Baltimore did not think they would be at 0-2, going into week 3. I know Dallas, felt like they should have played a lot better at home versus the Saints. But I'm going to go with the Ravens getting their first win of the season. I think, they're due. They can't afford to go 0-3 in that division. We see how Pittsburgh is playing. Obviously, Cincinnati took a bad loss last week that they should have won in Kansas City. They're not have not got a win, but they look pretty good. And obviously Cleveland has a win on their board. So Baltimore cannot they cannot afford to go down 0-3 this week.
All right, so a get-right game for the Baltimore Ravens, according to LeBron James. So that's a great slate there. We appreciate all the picks. We know you got a few anytime touchdown scorers for us. DraftKings, great place to bet touchdowns. So who do you got getting into the end zone this weekend?
Yeah, who I got getting into the end zone this weekend? I am looking at this slate. I'm going Mike Evans versus that Broncos defense. I am also going to go with Stephon Diggs. And my one running back, wow, this is a tough one. Since we brought it up and talked about it, I'm gonna go Derrick Henry versus that Cowboys defense. So those would be my three choices.
I thought you may go down that road. Real quick, obviously your breakdowns are incredible, and your good buddy Tom Brady, while I know a lot of you current and former players, you own partial soccer teams is something you like to do. But Tom Brady's in the booth now. So with your breakdown, you ever think when you're done, you may end up in the booth breaking down basketball?
I don't know. I definitely love the sport. It'd be great. I see Tom Brady doing it. He's been great so far. And we will see, even if it's just a guest appearance, one game or two, when I'm done playing. But it's always fun to give back to the game, and the game has given me so much. So, if it's basketball, if it's football, if it's whatever, I love the word sport, because it's given so much to me and my family, and it's only right I give back to it.
Well, LeBron, we appreciate you giving us some of your time today. This was a ton of fun. Can't thank you enough. We're excited to watch you and your son this upcoming season. Really appreciate your time today.
Man, appreciate it. I love being on GoJo and Golic. You guys are unbelievable, man. Appreciate you. And, best of luck with the rest of the show for the rest of the year. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, LeBron.
Definitely.
Appreciate it, man.
We're looking forward to that. Thank you, LeBron. Hopefully we'll see you down the road as well here. And guys, you just heard who LeBron was talking about getting in the end zone this weekend. Touchdowns matter even more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. How much more, you ask? Listen to this. Everyone has a shot to score big this weekend with DraftKings Touchdown Parlay Profit Boost. This week, all customers are going to get up to 100% profit boost on any NFL touchdown parlay. The more touchdown bets you add to your bet slip, the bigger the boost and the bigger your winnings. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code LBJ. That's code LBJ for everyone to score up to 100% profit boost on any NFL touchdown parlay. Only on DraftKings until October 21st. The crown is yours.
All right, welcome back. Our thanks to LeBron James for joining us and giving us a bunch of time here in the show. If you missed any of that interview live, make sure you check it out wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done. He had plenty of takes when it came to the NFL. And, Dad, so did our friend Mel Kiper Jr. the other day over on ESPN. I know there's been a lot of talk at the beginning of the season now, and really for the last couple years, about how defenses have played some of these high-powered offenses over the years. And modern problems require modern solutions. This was Mel Kiper Jr., ESPN NFL draft expert extraordinaire, on his solution for the problem the NFL faces.
Think about those quarterbacks who would throw the ball down the field. I said what Bradshaw did with Stallworth and Swan, Roger Staubach. That's what I want to see brought back. Say, well, you can't do that, right? Well, you got a 5-yard rule with the cornerbacks, right? The Mel Blount rule, right? Now with the push thing with Hurts, you got to be a yard back now. So don't tell me you can't have those safeties closer to the line of scrimmage than they are. I was at games where I'm thinking, hey, too high? They're out in outer space. I couldn't even find us. They're playing with 9 guys, right? Where are the other 2? Oh, the other 2, they're so daggone far back, and even though they're part of the damn play. I'm telling you, we got to change this thing, and we got to have, hey, you can warn them. They come up, hey, guys, you got to get up a little bit, right? You're too far back. Warn those safeties, but you got to figure out, competition committee, somebody's got to figure out what that depth is, but it's too far back right now. The NFL is being ruined by these too high safeties.
Man, Melly takes out here. Dad, I can see the palpable disgust on your face right now. For someone to Mel Kiper, who we both love and revere, pumpkin pie is awesome, but this probably a step too far.
And that's why every analyst on that set was just kind of smiling. Everybody has so much respect for Mel, including me. I'm 61, Mel's 64. Mel mentioned, all the players way back in my day and before my day, but we're not in those times anymore. I mean, talk about the old man on the steps saying, get off my lawn. I mean, and I don't, again, I love Mel, but, and that's all, there's always the but. I can't believe that he said this. I can't. Now they have changed defensive or made defensive rules more, palatable for the offense, but to outlaw 2 high safeties or make them play close. How about this? How about you run the ball effectively? How about you run the ball effectively, and let's bring the running back and maybe up his value. You run the ball effectively, and maybe that's why there wasn't many 2 high safeties way back in the day, because the game was more running football. A safety had to be down in the box to kind of stop the run, so that opened up passes over the middle. Run the football well, and the safety will have to come down. It's a chess match. You adjust. But to go to the length of outlawing how deep 2 safeties can be, again, I'm going to kind of bite my tongue for my respect and love for Mel. That was just a bad statement. I could go deeper. It was just a bad statement.
Well, it's a bridge too far in a guy that's trying to think creatively about what we've seen and heard talked about in the NFL so much. And I think the interesting part is his line of thinking isn't crazy in that, hey, the NFL's already tinkered with a bunch of rules that have made passing a lot easier for offenses over the years. So what's one more on top of the pile? It's just, to your point, Dad, it's part of the ebbs and flows of this. Nate Tice over at Yahoo pointed out the other day and made the point on his podcast that a lot of this is about offensive lines in recent years not having been good enough, both in the run game and the commitment there, but also in pass protection. If you don't have to send more guys to bother the quarterback, why would you? You would just drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage every play and make life a lot harder for these quarterbacks that have grown up throwing the football a lot more, that grew up in an era where that became lionized in the way running back used to be lionized. And so now, and we've talked about this in the last couple of years, we're seeing the market correction. Look no further than these New Orleans Saints. And Nate also pointed out cover 2 still not the most prevalent coverage seen in the league at all. So you're addressing something that's not actually dominating the competition in the ways that Mel and some others might think here. It's just once people started calling it shell coverage and it had like an easy, kitschy name, all of a sudden people started to be making it out more than it is, which is just it's an adjustment. And now as defenses have gotten small and light, offenses are going to start to kick their ass up front a little bit more, and round we're going to go.
It's exactly right. You'll see more nickelbacks in, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs, run the ball. It's a game of adjustments. And you mentioned that when you can just rush 4 and drop 7, why not? But even when you're aggressive and you're blitzing, say like a Brian Flores defense, and you're blitzing, you're going to make the quarterback get rid of the ball quicker as well. They're going to throw in the holes where the linebacker or the DB blitz from the outside or from the middle. So the ball is going to come out shorter anyway. I mean, it's one thing to try and outlaw how deep safeties can be in a too high, but it's another thing to bring back the old days. I mean, you just can't relive the old days, the Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw. By the way, you saw, some deep passes, but you also saw those teams pounding the hell out of the ball, running. I mean, it just wasn't bomb after bomb. I mean, look at Staubach and Terry, especially Terry Bradshaw's total passing yards. It was a running league. And to say you want to outlaw 2 high safeties because of the bombs they threw back in the day, I mean, but to your point, I understand what he's doing because there has been tinkering to the defense. But this, as you mentioned, this is by far a bridge too far.
Yeah, exactly. I think, forgetting even those guys back then, yesteryear of the waning years of Brady and Manning and the early years of Patrick Mahomes and some of these guys that came into the league, where, even with this class of quarterbacks, this is really because the quarterbacks that were fun coming into the league, like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, feel less fun now because they don't get to do the ball go boom thing as much anymore.
Right.
We've got a team in Miami that still does plenty of that, quite honestly. If you're looking for a little bit, that teams have had to get more creative, but I think, Dad, fans of football and fans of any sport, and this is some of the criticism of the effect that analytics have had on sports like baseball or basketball, where you get this proliferation of platooning in Major League Baseball when it comes to pitchers, or you get the 3-point revolution in basketball that can sometimes make things look more the same. College football is getting some of that criticism right now, and I think that might be the worry for some people, is they don't want football to go that same route where now all of a sudden everyone's just running cover 2, everyone's running some version of the Shanahan McVay offenses, and round we go without much need for creativity or ingenuity.
Right.
And I think doing something like this, changing a rule, actually works counter to that. You need these things to persist so that you get the great offensive minds, adjusting the way D coordinators did to everything that was happening on offense. These guys are highly paid too on defense, even if we don't spout all their names off as quickly as we do some of the offensive minds around the league. And so that adjustment from offenses in terms of what you do protection wise, how your quarterbacks go about exploiting this, is going to have to be the next step. And hopefully it's creatively done in a way that we usually reserve for high school and college.
What's never going to change is each side is going to take what you're given. Offense is going to take what the defense gives you. The defense plays back. You're going to run the ball. You're going to throw short passes to bring the safeties up. Then you can try and take shots over the top. I mean, that's never, ever going to change. It's going to be the ultimate chess match of play caller on offense and play caller on defense. So, again, and to Tom Brady's point that he made at the beginning of the year, where the quarterback position, for lack of a better term, has been dumbed down. It has been from the college standpoint of portal quarterbacks changing learning systems in a year, getting the play from the sideline, getting the adjustment from the sideline, and then that enters the NFL.
Yeah, I think I always choose to go, it's been simplified because the time has not been there and allowed by a lot of the people involved. And so it's going to be interesting to see how everyone pivots off that. I do think you see hope showing up in certain places. Matt LaFleur and what he's done with Malik Willis and the way that some of these guys are able to morph game plans now does give me hope that we won't have to resort to Mel Kiper's solution of banning cover 2. Coming up next, let's finish off the show with what everyone's expecting. New giant baby penguin just dropped. Let's get excited. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, Xumo Play, all that fun stuff. And, of course, if you miss us live in any of these great streaming platforms, you can check out us or our great guests. Thank you to, can't believe this is a real statement I get to say, thank you to LeBron James for joining us today on the show. If you missed any of that conversation, it's available wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the show. Dad, let's get to this and talk about, if we're going to talk about LeBron James in the show, it's only right that we have a Michael Jordan headline as well. Although this one off the court for MJ apparently might have a buyer for his $15 million house in Chicago after 12 years. The 56,000 square foot estate currently listed as contingent. It's in Highland Park, Illinois. It's got an iconic 23 gate, 9 bedrooms, 19 bathrooms, a cigar room, a library, an indoor gym, and of course, a full-size basketball court and a circular infinity pool and a tennis court, all on 7 acres of land. So, Dad, buying a celebrity's house after they've gotten done, especially one like this, so tailored to that one person's identity, always really interesting to me, because I'm sure part of it is, hey, you're someone in that tax bracket, you're buying in a neighborhood you like, in an area you like anyway. Like, do you change that stuff? Do you leave the 23 gate as a talking point? How much of this do you let stick around?
Yeah, I just wonder how much of it is I don't know the insides. The 23 gate, obviously, which you could easily change. But we've seen other rich people in mansions have full-size basketball courts, tennis courts, putting greens, swimming pools, cigar rooms. So, I don't know how much the inside is personalized to Jordan. By the way, of the 19 bathrooms, 15 are full-size bathrooms. Not these, half bath things. They're full 15 full-size bathrooms. He first listed it in 2012 for $29 million. And I'm sure thought, hell, it's my mansion. Who wouldn't want to buy Michael Jordan's mansion? But it sat in 2015. It was listed for like 14.8, and that's probably in the area that it's going to go for. But it took a long time. Took a long time for it to sell. He sold his he had a condo in Chicago he sold last year for $6 million. He has places now that he goes to. He lives in Florida and North Carolina. So getting rid of the last place that he had in Chicago.
I do wonder in this event too with Michael Jordan. Actually, I just completely forgot my point there, so we're going to move on anyway there. Either way, congrats to MJ for getting a little bit more money in his pocket. Shouts out to him there. I hope it works well. Go with God. Dad, let's get to the news I really wanted to talk about, probably why I was so distracted here. We've had a lot of viral animal news in the last couple of weeks here, from Moo Dang, the pygmy hippopotamus that has taken the internet by storm. She is our chosen queen. I love her dearly. Seeing the videos of her getting sprayed with the little hose and freaking out, or wiggling around with all her little rolls, has brought me untold amounts of joy. We had the Chinese zoo that got outed for touting dogs painted in black and white as pandas in the zoo, which are some of the funniest pictures in the history of the internet. But now we've got Pesto, the giant baby penguin, a new penguin chick who apparently came out and weighs already as much as both of his parents combined. He's 49 pounds at 9 months old. He is the heaviest penguin chick the Sea Life Melbourne Aquarium has ever had, according to its education supervisor, Jacinta Early, on Friday. His parents both weigh 24 pounds each. So he is a viral superstar for being a thick boy, Dad, which is something that this show greatly appreciates.
More than 1.9 billion people around the world have viewed him through social media. And it's kind of reminiscent of the small parents that you see. They show the small parents of a giant offensive lineman, or the short parents of a 7-footer. And you just go, how the hell did that happen? How did that come out of those two parents, come from those two parents? And you could say the same thing about Pesto. Doubling the size of each parent. That is, you just go, how? How does that happen? But boy, what a great attraction.
It's awesome for Pesto. I know they said in like part of, Penguin Life, you see him covered in all that fuzz there. He's going to lose it and get the black and white coat coming up pretty soon, but I'd imagine still be thick as hell. This Penguin is an absolute unit. And knowing what Penguins do between waddling around and sliding on their bellies. By the way, speaking of sliding on their bellies, shouts out to our buddy Harry Lyles, who was on the call on Thursday Night Football with Matt Barry and the coach Dan Mullen for that App State beatdown at the hands of Georgia Southern, who I don't know if you saw, Dad, Harry Lyles dressed up in the overalls with the student section over on the hill in Boone and went sliding belly first down the hill like a penguin, then followed by their cameraman who went sliding down on his ass right into the student section there. So imitating penguin behavior, even though Harry Lyles dropped the workout routine. Dude is freaking jacked. This penguin is freaking huge. Body types slightly differ.
Yeah, Harry Lyles, way to have fun. I mean, God forbid we have fun in a broadcast. Well done by you. And you wonder if Pesto, just as Pesto gets older, becomes the out and out leader, right? Just because of sheer size. And sheer intimidation factor, like Pesto's first one off the bus. Pesto's first in line when they're all walking somewhere. Pesto is leading the way. Just like, I'm leading. Don't mess with us.
You want Pesto going out as the captain for the coin toss. You want Pesto out there making the rest of your group look like Mark Ingram standing next to Derrick Henry when he was back as an honorary captain in Alabama. Fully agree. That seems like Pesto's lot in life. So thank you for being our chosen penguin of GoJo and Golic, the gigantic baby penguin, to rule them all. Dad, while we're talking about cold stuff, let's get to the third and talk a little hockey here. I literally just had to catch myself because I'm salivating as I get ready to read this headline. The Toronto Maple Leafs get Oreo to sponsor their helmets not long after they have added milk as a sponsor to their jerseys. Dad, the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I know are much maligned in terms of the postseason failures that haunt and follow this franchise, at the very least have the most delicious helmet and jersey combination ever hypothesized the minute we started doing this. They're literally the cookies and milk team. They're the cookies and milk squad.
I mean, and the blue helmet, it's like the blue package. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the leaf is white like the milk. I mean, the color combinations are perfect. Absolutely perfect. As long as they don't promote the Oreo thins. Okay? Those need to be abolished. Oreo thins need to be abolished. Oreo thins, if you're going to have an Oreo, listen, you're already eating the cookie. You're already getting a little bit of the cream in the thins. What the hell does it matter? Get yourself a double stuffed. It should be regular and double stuffed. I would say only should be double stuffed because you're eating an Oreo, you're eating an Oreo. So get rid of the thins. But this is very, very cool. I mean, the colors match perfectly. This is a win-win situation as long as Toronto can maybe now win in the postseason.
Yeah, I've also had a little bit of a tortured history with the Oreo thins as a concept here. Obviously, I've become a little bit known in internet circles for doing a lot of different Oreo reviews in here. I will say most stuffed, once that became an invention and a part of the franchise, should have become the standard. Like, I don't even think doing the regular ones anymore. That cream to cookie ratio that most stuff presents, to me, is the ideal form of the cookie.
But I'll say your mother made a wonderful kind of low-cal dessert. It was sugar-free Cool Whip, sugar-free pudding with crushed Oreo thins over the top, since they're the least caloried of the regular Oreo or the double-stuffed Oreo. So still great tasting. The pudding and the whipped cream and then the crushed-up Oreo thins over the top, and you chill that. It's wonderful.
That's the perfect use of the thin, though, is if you don't want to crumble up and use the full Oreo cookie with the cream and maybe feel like you're wasting some of those delicious savory innards of the cookie, then you can just do it with the thins that are basically just two cookies with a little whisper of creme in the middle of those. So shout out to Mom for continuing to innovate on the dessert front.
Yep. Do you take
shout out to
apart
Oreos
the cookie?
for continuing to innovate on the uniform sponsorship. Not a sponsor yet, could be. Getting some free love right here. Give us some free love by downloading, subscribing, rating, reviewing this show. Leave us a 5-star rating. Thanks so much. Enjoy the weekend. We will talk to you guys back here on Monday.